It was China's withdrawal from the World Rally Championship which left the way clear for Cyprus to move up to the big time, which is why in early September we're on the outskirts of Limassol in temperatures approaching 35 degrees. That heat's expected to play a significant part over the next 3 days, as are 23 of the championship's twistiest and rockiest stages. But unusually, in the lead up to the event, the talk's not been about the Cyprus Rally, but rather the comings and goings behind the scenes. Signor Agudelo, you've made the decision to pull out of rallying at the end of this year. Why?
Well, the decision was not to pull out of rallying, it was to stop the World Rally Championship. We will keep the activities in rallies, we will push as maximum the national activities in our importers, and we will keep the team working in the World Rally national events. That means it's a tough decision for us to withdraw in the World Rally Championship, but it's a strategic decision.
It's a shame. I think we have to get used to the idea that from time to time, manufacturers will change their priorities and decide to go in another direction, but it is a shame to lose a manufacturer.
So both Seat's drivers are on the market for next year. Didier Auriol's name's been linked with Citroën's entry into the championship, while Tony Gardemeister's apparently talking to a number of teams. But there'll be no room for either at Subaru. The team recently announced that for next year, Richard Burns will be joined by two stars of the future, 24-year-old Estonian Marco Martin, and, snatched from under the noses of the Ford team, the 25-year-old Norwegian Petter Solberg.
We sat down several months ago and said, what should our driver strategy be with a 5-year view? And we felt that with a 5-year view, it was time to start with some young talent and see if we can find another Burns and McRae. And we think that these two guys are the best around to take that gamble with. And we were talking to them for a little while, and it may have been a shock to you, but it wasn't a shock to us.
It certainly came as a shock to Ford.
I don't know, you need to ask Malcolm that, really. Yeah, ask Malcolm.
I think at this moment in time I'm not prepared to comment any further on the subject.
One other item of news was the debut of Skoda's Evolution 2 Octavia, while Armin Schwartz was the only works driver to have competed on the event before. He won in 1996 on his way to the European title.
I mean, no space for any mistakes anyway, because it's very narrow, very small, very tight, and I think you have to get to the end, definitely. I mean, it's quite a tough event, especially by the heat, the concentration. The stages are longer than usual time-wise because they're very twisty and slow. And I think it's up to every driver who can concentrate long enough and get the car on the road.
The Cyprus Rally was based at Limassol on the island's south coast, with legs 1 and 2 sharing stages around the Troodos Mountains to the northwest, and leg 3 centred 45 miles to the east. Leg 1 will be the longest, with 9 stages and 90 competitive miles of twisting tracks. After victory in Finland, Marcus Gronholm was the new championship leader, and Julie had the honour of leading the crews off the Limassol start ramp. Former leader Richard Burns was now 6 points adrift in second place, having at one time held a comfortable 14-point lead. The pressure was on to get a good result, especially as his arch rival Colin McRae was now sitting just 2 points behind him in third. The locals were out in force to watch their first World Championship rally, bolstered by a large number of tourists enjoying the Mediterranean sun. With the next two events running on tarmac, loose surface specialist Gronholm was determined to make the most of the dusty, twisty, rock-strewn Cypriot roads. But the privilege of running first was working against him, as he swept the road clean for the others and could only manage 5th place after the first 4 stages. His teammate Francois Delacour was just 1.3 seconds faster over those 25 miles, but the Peugeot pair were around 24 seconds off the pace. There was plenty of patriotic support for the British crews, and Richard Burns didn't disappoint. Fastest on stage 2, he and co-driver Robert Reid were lying second, just 1 second off the lead, but problems on stage 4 dropped them to third, 20 seconds off the pace. But at least that was 5 places and 16 seconds better than teammate Juha Kankkunen. Tommy Mäkinen's dreams of a 5th consecutive crown for Mitsubishi are all but over, but that doesn't mean he's given up trying. He was 6th after those opening 4 stages, but surprisingly only 1 place better and 5 seconds ahead of his previously lacklustre teammate Freddie Loix, who got off to his best start of the year.
But the early pace setters were the 2 Ford Focuses. Colin McRae second fastest on 3 of the first 4 stages.
2 left minus. 30, right tightens to 1.
His teammate, however, went 1 better. Carlos Sainz and his co-driver Lewis Moyer were fastest on stages 1, 3 and 4 and headed for the day's first service area with a lead of nearly 12 seconds over McRae. Skoda's new car got off to a promising start. Armin Schwartz and Manfred Heimer were equal 8th quickest on the 4-mile opening stage, less than 8 seconds off Sainz's pace. Their teammates, Luis Clement and Alex Romani, were 14th quickest, but the team's luck wouldn't last long. Stage 2, a 7-miler, and Schwartz had obviously forgotten his comment that mistakes would be costly.
100, double caution, tricky, heads push right 3 to 4. Right 3 to 4. In caution, over crest left 3 tight rolls.
They might build them strong in the Czech Republic, but this particular Octavia was going no further.
Well, it's actually my stupid mistake. I did not really listen to Manfred enough. When I really saw what's coming up, then it was too late because we came in too fast to this corner and then we rolled the car.
To make matters worse, Luis Clement put a hole in his car's sump on stage 4, and the resulting lack of oil meant he too retired, so the team had little choice but to head home. At the other end of the service park, thoughts were starting to turn to the next stage, over 800 corners packed into a little under 20 miles.
Well, at the moment it's no problem. I mean, we are trying hard, not crazy but hard, and now the next one, it's most important stage I think of the day, very long, where you have to be very careful with the tires. Your line is very narrow as well. So.
At Subaru, Burns seemed happy enough, a slight electronic glitch his only complaint.
Yeah, it was quite close between Carlos and Colin and myself, but then the last stage we lost some problem with the throttle pedal, which meant that I couldn't get full throttle, and it was getting worse through the stage. So by the end I had virtually no boost or anything like that.
This next stage is something special, isn't it?
It is absolutely unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. It's 31 kilometres of corner after corner after corner, and it just goes on and on and on.
Marcus Gronholm was second fastest through those grueling twists of stage 5, and Robert Reid had been more than right because the cars were only averaging 52 kilometres an hour. That's 32 mph to you and me. Unfortunately, Gronholm's pace didn't put a smile on his face because he had begun to have problems with his engine. And as Richard Burns sped through stage 6, he would discover that those problems had become terminal.
30, flat left, 30, flat left in 40, medium right tight, medium.
It started on the long stage. We had problems with the alternator. It was flashing and also some diff problems on that stage. But we start stage 6, and I think we can continue to finish without not so big problems. But okay, after 7 Ks it was stopped and all power was gone. We couldn't do anything. So.
Didier Auriol had no such problems with the power of his Seat's engine, but couldn't cope with the loss of power assistance to his steering. He had been lying a competitive 6th, but the twists and turns of stages 5 and 6 completely exhausted him.
Stage 4 we have a rear diff problem, and after we broken on the start of the stage 5 we broken the power pump steering after 4 kilometers. And I mean, it was quite very hard stage, and I am completely finished for the moment. I am very tired everywhere. I have pain everywhere, and we see what we can do.
Do you feel like carrying on?
Yes.
There are times when pictures speak much louder than words. Unfortunately for Didier, Seat could replace the steering rack, but a broken wheel bearing on the way to stage 7 brought a merciful end to his rally.
The reigning world champion was also having problems. A 10-second road penalty incurred for the most bizarre of reasons.
We had all right first stage, and then we made some timing mistake. Risto, look, he said we have a 15 minutes time to work after the stage tires and what else. We had something else to do, and we stopped to do that work quite early, and suddenly he said, bloody hell, now we have to go, we have no time anymore, and we took 1 minute road penalty for that.
Juha Kankkunen had also picked up a penalty 5 minutes after missing the control board which marked the entry to the Trudos service park. As the crews headed back towards Limassol, Tony Gardemeister in the sole surviving Seat Cordoba would end leg 1 in 6th place. 5th was the Toyota Team Sweden car of Marco Martin and British co-driver Michael Park. Despite an overheating engine, Colin McRae's Ford Focus was 4th, nearly 19 seconds down on 3rd placed Richard Burns, who was also starting to feel the heat.
Tight in 40. Slow K-left. Easy. Sorry. 40 slow K-left.
Francois Delacour now had the hopes of the Peugeot team resting on his shoulders. He ended the day 2nd, but there was no disputing the stars of leg 1. Carlos Sainz and Luis Moya had been fastest on 7 of the 9 stages, and the Focus headed for the day's final service area with a lead of 1 minute and 20 seconds. Days don't get much better than that.
No, actually I'm quite happy. I think it has been a good day so far, and rally's going well for me. I'm confident, the car is working very well, the tires as well. Confident with the car, and notes looks to be okay except a couple of times or 3, but not so bad.
We are in 2nd position, but Carlos is going also so fast, so well, which is difficult for us to catch him maybe tomorrow.
Richard, not a bad day, although I suspect you'd prefer to be leading tonight.
Yeah, would have been better, of course, but the times that Carlos has put in, and plus we had a little problem this morning with the car, and also stage 8. I made a couple of mistakes, I spun and I overshot a corner as well, so over the day we've lost about half a minute, but that doesn't put us anywhere near to Carlos. He's done some really good times.
You're 4th tonight. Can you do much about that tomorrow?
I hope so, yeah. It's, I mean, the times are still okay with everyone else. Carlos has obviously got quite a good time advantage in everyone, but compared with Richard, who is really the sort of main guy we should be looking at, it looks good.
The day still had one last drama up its sleeve, however. 2nd place Delacour had virtually no fuel left, and the refuelling point lay at the top of a quarter-mile climb. His mechanics helped conserve what little fuel he had, and thanks to them, he made it, running virtually on fumes. So this was how the leaderboard stood at the end of leg 1. Sainz's performance speaks for itself, while the rest of the top 6 were covered by a little over 3 minutes. And so to day 2, a day which the World Championship leader will be spending either by the pool or trying to find a flight home to Finland. Of course, Marcus Gronholm wasn't the only casualty of leg 1, but at least the 2 British title contenders are still in the running. Carlos Sainz's performance yesterday, meanwhile, was nothing short of stunning, but he and the others will be only too aware that with the stages now being used for a 2nd and in some cases 3rd time, this event is about to get even tougher.
7 of leg 2's 8 stages would be held over the same roads as the day before, although on some they would be run in the opposite direction, so a completely different set of pace notes would be required. By now the rally had become so popular, crowd control was beginning to get out of hand, and if this new event is to become a regular fixture, it's something that will have to be addressed. Leader Carlos Sainz was first into the stages, which were now mainly clear of dust, but full of ruts and rocks. The only fresh stage was the day's opener, and the Spaniard could only manage the 6th fastest time. Teammate McRae was 2nd fastest, but to everyone's surprise, it was Freddie Loix who was quickest. A sticking throttle had sent him rolling into the scenery the previous day, dropping him from 6th to 12th, but the twists and turns of Cyprus obviously suited him.
It was a good feeling, and especially because everything was going so well. I was back driving very clean, like I did before, and when I arrived on the finish I knew it should be a good time. I didn't know exactly it should be the best time, but the feeling was okay, and that was very important.
To prove his point, Freddie was 4th and 3rd on the next 2 stages, which were won by Mäkinen and Kankkunen. No one though was threatening Sainz, who seemed more worried about the conditions than the competition.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite difficult for sure for the tires. Hopefully we can try to stay at the same level.
Well, they're a lot rougher than yesterday, and obviously very long, quite tough, and it's a lot hotter today, so there could be there could be some movement in the leaderboard.
You got past your first target this morning, which was Francois, fairly early on.
Yeah, he didn't put up so much of a fight, but I think the fact that Carlos is still able to do times comparable to ours is not. We beat him, but just by 1 or 2 seconds each time, and it's not enough.
Tony Gardemeister was still giving Sayat something to smile about, running in a strong 7th place. But he would roll off the road on stage 14, leaving the Sayat mechanics with little choice but to pack up and head home to Spain.
Colin McRae's prediction that the leaderboard might well change on stages 13 and 14 was about to be proved correct. Preserving his tyres on the first of the pair, the Scot attacked on the second, the long, twisty stage which caused so many problems on leg 1. 40 seconds quicker than his teammate and nearly a minute faster than Burns, it was now a Ford 1-2 once again, with Sainz still leading by over a minute, taking some interesting lines on stage 14.
Buena, sí, para izquierda Casetier, abrirse. Izquierda Casetier, abrirse, acaba que acorta.
Initially, Burns also attacked on the long stage, and reports from halfway through suggested the Impreza was even quicker than the Focus. Dreams of threatening Sainz, however, quickly turned sour. Even with the support of the hundreds of British spectators enjoying the sunshine, keep an eye on the Subaru's front wheel. Suspension failure around halfway through stage 14 was the reason for the time loss, a bitter disappointment for Burns and co-driver Robert Reid. The team engineers were quick to assess the damage, but the crew already knew what had caused the problem.
Looks like same problem as Greece. Strop went soft, end of the first one, the damper went soft, and then obviously just during the second stage, longest stage of the rally, rough, and it just got worse and worse and then broke, and we lost a minute.
The relevant bits were ready and waiting by the time the car entered service. It would be a relatively straightforward repair, but victory was now surely all but impossible.
So is that it now? Well, there's still quite a close thing. Francois is quite close behind, but Colin is like 35 seconds in front and doing the same time as us, so what can I do about that? I've been trying already, so.
We heard a midpoint say that Richard was something like 20 seconds up on you, so what did you think when you heard about his problem?
I didn't even know he had a problem until I got back here. I didn't know, I thought he would have been trying pretty hard, but I didn't realise he had a problem.
What happens now? Something like 50 seconds down on Carlos with a day and a half to go?
I think it's just over a minute, but if nothing happens with Carlos, if he doesn't have any problems, he's not really catchable. When you look at the speed he's been going at from the start of the rally, so the plan is just to keep going and hopefully people will have problems round about us.
After being fastest on stage 11, Tommy Mäkinen also headed the times on stage 16. He'd already taken 6th place off Gardemeister before the Finn had rolled out, and through the day he closed the gap to 5th from 1 minute 19 seconds to just 14 seconds. The man in Tommy's sights was the impressive young Estonian Marco Martin, who was now running just over a minute behind his teammate-to-be, Richard Burns, whose rally was still beset with niggling problems.
K-right, plus, and K-right, plus, 40, fast right in, 60, left max, 20, medium right, plus.
This time it was the gearbox that was playing up.
20 medium right minus stone, 20 flat left.
Francois Delacour continued to have a relatively trouble-free run in his Peugeot, now safe in 3rd and determined to pick up valuable manufacturer's points. The fastest man over leg 2 was Colin McRae, who had moved up from 4th to 2nd and taken 38 seconds out of the gap to Carlos Sainz, but the Spaniard was still over a minute in the lead.
I have a small problem with the jets of the water and also with the tires. I think the fact that I was running first car on the road have a little bit too much wheel spin to cleaning the road today, and it was an easy day, but here we are.
Well, of course, we've got our teammate in front and we've got a comfortable lead from third place. So at the end of the day, I think it's a case of probably protecting our positions a little bit. Of course, you can't afford to back off too much because very unpredictable these stages, and certainly the second stage of tomorrow is very, very tricky.
Richard, it's not really been your day today, has it?
No, we've had too many problems. We've had the one of the dampers fail in the long stage, and then prop shaft failed in the last one. So we've lost about 2 minutes today. Back down in fourth, and we're about 45 seconds behind Delacour, and it's going to be quite hard work to get him tomorrow. But that's our plan.
With the top 6 now spread well apart and covered by a full 4 minutes, the order looked pretty settled. But the rough and hot conditions meant that no one could relax. Leg 3 took the teams to 3 new stages, each to be run twice, but totalling only 25 miles of competitive action.
Leg 3 stages might be well to the east of Limassol, but the day's service area is right on the seafront in the town itself. Those 6 stages are now all that stand between Ford and their second 1-2 of the year, and so Colin McRae must be a happy man this morning. The bad luck which plagued him for well over a year now seems to have switched its allegiance to Richard Burns. Every time Burns had a chance to attack yesterday, something else went wrong with the car. Unhappiness at Subaru then, joy at Ford. But as everyone keeps telling us, this rally isn't over until the crews are safely back here tonight. Tommy Mäkinen began leg 3 intent on overhauling Marco Martin. The Toyota would be slower than the Mitsubishi on all but one of the day's 6 stages. Mäkinen duly snatched 5th place and never looked likely to lose it again. Richard Burns' miserable rally was continuing. The throttle problems were back on stage 18, the day's first.
And K right, 60. Slow K left tightens maybe, and K left, 50.
Teammate Kankinen would finish 7th, claiming a single manufacturer's point. The 5-minute penalty he picked up on leg 1 having been reduced to 3 by the stewards. Delacour's 3rd place meanwhile now looked fairly secure. Burns' glitches meant the Peugeot now had an advantage of over a minute. But it was still the 2 Fords which were out in front. Nothing, it seemed, could prevent them from taking the maximum 16 championship points for finishing 1st and 2nd.
And 6 right opens and tightens into left and right over crest and 2 left.
McRae and Grist were now less than a minute behind Sainz and Moyer. With only 3 stages remaining, the result seemed a formality. At service after stage 20, the reason for Burns' latest misfortune became clear.
Some rallies you just know aren't going to be yours, and it seems like from the end of the first day, then this wasn't going to be our rally. And I've been trying. We were quickest on the next 2 stages, but the first one this morning, the ECU failed, and I lost about a minute.
Carlos now has a huge lead. It doesn't look like he'll be threatened. You've been in that position before. What will he be thinking as he starts these last 3 stages?
Definitely he's listening very carefully all the little noise and whatever.
Francois Delacour was doubtless thinking the same, but this time his Peugeot didn't let him down and he headed for 3rd place and 4 valuable championship points. Colin McRae happily settled for 2nd, and another solid result that puts him right in the frame for a 2nd world title. And he's now driving with ever-increasing maturity.
To right and left tightens to slow 3. Into right and left tightens to long slow 3. And right tightens to 3.
For Carlos Sainz, this would be more than just another World Rally win, because it would also be his 23rd, and he would once again top the table for all-time winners alongside Juha Kankinen. And it would bring him back into the fight for the 2000 title.
Our time 8:47.2. 8:47.2.
Carlos, Lewis, Malcolm, many congratulations. Long time for that 23rd victory. What a performance, led from start to finish. Thank you very much both for a fantastic job.
The whole Ford team were overjoyed with the result. And so, of course, was Carlos.
Well, everyone is different, you know. I think I have been waiting for a long time now for this 23rd. I hope I don't have to wait another 2 years because maybe it's a little bit too much. But I've been, very close of winning in '98 the championship, and since there, I've been second and third and disappointed all the time, small seconds. And finally we did it here, and I'm really happy about the victory also.
You're making a habit of it now, making 1-2s for Ford on hot, dusty events?
Certainly going well. The next two are going to be interesting, being tarmac again, and 4 drivers very, very close for the title. It's going to be quite exciting.
Everyone's saying the roads are so slow. Should we really be coming here?
Yes, because it's different style of rally. I think we have to do every style, and Safari is another style. Finland is so fast, here it's so slow, and I think we have to accept and to do everything.
For Richard Burns, Robert Reid and the Subaru team, it's time to concentrate on their homework. The one-time clear championship favourites are under pressure.
I know that myself and the car have got the speed to do it, but you need the complete package. I have the car, I have myself and Robert with the speed, and we need now to make sure that everything is 100%, absolutely 100% before we start the rallies.
In the end, Sainz's winning margin was just over 37 seconds, with McRae a further 53 clear of Delacour. Burns, Mäkinen and Martin completed the point-scoring positions. The maximum 10 points for Sainz means the Drivers' Series is now a 4-way fight once again. Gronholm still leads, but McRae and Burns are now just a point apart. The Manufacturers' Championship, meanwhile, now looks to be a 3-way affair. Ford are 15 points clear of Subaru, but Peugeot, a further 6 adrift, are very much still in the hunt. But the Cyprus Rally belonged to Carlos Sainz and the Ford team. Leaders from start to finish, Sainz and Lewis Moyer richly deserved their first taste of the winner's champagne since the 1998 Rally New Zealand. And so the sun sets on the first World Championship Cyprus Rally, an event which ran virtually without a hitch, although there are improvements to be made for next year. That's of no consequence, however, to Carlos Sainz and the Ford team. With 4 rounds of the World Championship remaining, they're in a commanding position in both Drivers' and Manufacturers' Series. Round 11 is on another Mediterranean island, Corsica, in 3 weeks' time.
Cycling, beach volleyball and sailing at the Olympics over on BBC One in 15 minutes, and our coverage here on BBC Two begins at 3:45 this afternoon.